What's going on there, guys? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster here on this Wednesday evening, January 26, 2022, about 6:38 p.m. California time. Latest quake out there on the globe is a 5.2 earthquake. Pretty deep movement out there around the Fiji Islands area and the Tonga region. That looks like we have seen a swarm of movement there within the last couple hours at that area just south of the Fiji Islands. Quite a bit of movement and activity to talk about on this update. Let's go ahead and jump into, well, the latest here on the area up in the Aleutian Islands, where we've seen an alert level raised on a volcano. Go ahead and drop this down a little bit of the Davidoff Volcano here, which is around this region here, where all this earthquake activity is occurring. We've been watching a little swarm of movement there around that volcano. Of course, the Aleutian Islands are filled with volcanoes, 100 volcanoes or so in the Alaska region. Very active area when it comes to volcanic activity. It's looking at the 7-day spring the all magnitudes. I don't think we're going to see all of them, but okay. Looking at about 40 earthquakes or so within this area of the Davidoff Volcano in the Aleutian Islands. Let's go ahead and back out, show you exactly where I'm at. Of course, you got Alaska over here, the Aleutian Islands here with a trail of volcanic islands stretching up here to our current swarm activity around the Davidoff Volcano. It's a pretty significant amount of earthquake activity around a volcano that they considered pretty much extinct. Let's go ahead and check out the latest information here from the USGS.gov volcano updates. You can see the Davidoff advisory level was raised. Right, it was raised due to a seismic swarm. They just raised it today, it looks like, on the 26th of January 2022 to a yellow advisory. So let's get into it. Let's read a little bit more information on this update here on the Davidoff Volcano. There's a lot of volcanic activity up there in the Aleutian area, folks, let me tell you. So these guys are stating here of the Davidoff Volcano, which again sits at volcano alert level of advisory and the aviation code into the yellow. Over the past 2 days, a swarm of earthquakes have occurred in the vicinity of the Davidoff Volcano. The largest earthquake in the current sequence happened yesterday and had a magnitude of 4.9. A similar, I'll spit it out, similar earthquake swarm occurred, looks like last month here in 2021. No signs of unrest has been observed in recent satellite imagery of the volcano. The earthquake activity may be associated with volcanic unrest or could be due to regional tectonic activity. To the possibility of escalating volcanic unrest, AVO has raised the aviation color and whatnot to the yellow and advisory level. We'll continue to monitor the situation with seismic meters deployed on nearby islands. There is no real-time seismic monitoring network of the Davidoff Volcano. Looks like about 15 kilometers is the nearest station when it comes to monitoring the tremor and activity there at the volcano. These folks here claim this thing was extinct. Crazy how it goes from pretty much extinct prior to the December activity to this type of movement now, this type of activity. So we will keep an eye on that pretty closely. The rest of the volcanic areas of the region there show, well, a couple up in the orange and watch area. We're not going to go into all those, but we do know activity is pretty a little heightened up here in this area right now of the Davidoff Volcano. There is the further volcanic activity here to the east, a separate volcano, and one to the west. Let's go ahead and jump into the Google Earth view. Let me pop this up here real quick on the map right there. This is kind of like a little bit closer overview of the volcano centered right here in the mark. Let's see if I can place a little mark here within this region. We'll just go ahead and we'll pinpoint it here. See if I can get this going in that area, roughly around there. Okay, maybe a little bit to the west. Okay, either way, there's volcanoes all throughout this region here. They named this one here Segula Island, it looks like. That's a beautiful volcano. The volcano in question, though, is the Davidoff Volcano here around the yellow pin, centered within this region. Now, this one, if you notice, is kind of underneath the water, right? Underneath the ocean. There's the little Sitkin Island, a volcano. Beautiful volcano as well. Check that baby out. It's absolutely stunning, no doubt, right? Absolutely stunning. But that one, even if this one were to blow, I don't think it'd have too much of an effect as far as creating a tsunami. You can see some the old caldera right there where it spilled out lava. This one here is I'm a little bit more concerned about. We'll take you over here to the Wikipedia article real quick. A little bit more information on this volcano. As they state here, it's Davidoff Volcano is a potentially active stratovolcano and caldera remnant. They call it a remnant in the Aleutian Islands. It's part of the Rat Islands subchain, a bunch of volcanoes in this area. A group of 4 islands formed when a stratovolcano caved in during this period here, back way back. So here's the earthquake thing I was telling you about in December last year. An earthquake, look at that, earthquake swarm it should be, occurred underneath the island, raising the alert level from extinct to yellow. How is that possible? That is crazy. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of habitation there on the land. Very little transportation is available. Here we're talking about in Alaska, at least 50 volcanoes, including those in the Aleutian area, have erupted in historical time. Like I mentioned, there's over 100 or so. The Davidoff is a stratovolcano and caldera remnant of a larger stratovolcano, which presumably collapsed at the end of this period right here. And all the caldera extends, check this out, 262 feet underwater. Okay, now we could have a worst case scenario here if this thing decides to blow and do a repeat of the Hunga Tonga volcano eruption there. 80 feet or 262 feet underwater the caldera extends. So we got to watch this pretty closely. There's not a whole lot of recorded history on it, although no eruptions have been recorded at Davidoff. There is evidence of activity at the volcano, obviously, right? Through aerial photography, lava flow deposits have been detected among the flanks of the island. While the exact age of the deposit is still unknown, one source estimates that they are probably less than 10,000 years old. So we got to watch this volcano pretty closely. Any volcano, when we see a significant type of earthquake swarm with a underwater type volcano here, watching that pretty closely. Over last day, just the day magnitudes here, 16 earthquakes of roughly 1 magnitudes. We did have that 4.8 kick up as well, very close to this region. USGS stating that they're uncertain if this is due to volcanic activity below or purely plate dynamics here in this region. But looking at the depth of these earthquakes, this is kind of where we do a little bit of studying and look at the dynamics here. These are all roughly between 3 to 5 kilometers below the surface, where we would expect some volcanic activity to kick up. If these were subduction zones or whatnot, earthquakes here, they'd be rather deep. But this is a volcanic swarm and definitely volcanic activity in nature, in my opinion, in that region. The rest of the Aleutian Trench looks pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on when it comes to seismic activity. Just right now, the Davidoff Volcano, which we're monitoring pretty closely. The rest of the Pacific Ring of Fire here along the northwestern part, Crokamachaka Trench. I'm going to spit it out. I'm just enjoying that tasty hamburger I just had off the barbecue. It's pretty yummy. A little bit of movement off the coast here of Tokyo into the Japan Trench. It looks like 61 kilometer, 4.5 deep earthquake. Over the last hour or so, we've seen a pretty large uptick in deep movement here in the Fiji area, including a 5.2. Look at that depth. That is super deep. 621.2 kilometers for that deep earthquake. Got to watch the rest of this region here. I noticed we've been, prior to the Hunga Tonga volcano eruption, we were looking at a lot of deep movement here within this region, which is not abnormal, but it seemed to heighten up the activity there at the volcanoes there in the Tonga region. So watch this area pretty closely. Also south of the Tonga area into the Kermadec Trench, a 4.9. Another pretty deep earthquake, 503 kilometers down there into the subduction zone. Specifically right around the Tonga volcanoes, activity continues here, although not as active. There's the Hunga Tonga volcano on the map right here. Lower earthquake, 4.6, just over here by a few miles, 10-kilometer depth for that earthquake. And also one down to the south, a 5.0 that struck most recently around the volcanic chain there in Tonga. So a whole lot of stuff going on here, folks. A lot of movement. You know, I think if we look at history, you know, our recorded short time here on Earth, we say, wow, it's been 100 years since this volcano has happened, or 500 years. We really don't know specifically, right? When it comes to our short study of history on volcanoes and what is possible out there in these subduction zones. We can look at scientific data and whatnot, but you know, we don't 100% know specifically, right? These guys were caught off guard with the Tonga eruption, and who knows what's possible from this other volcano up here to the north in the Aleutian Trench, underwater volcano, which they claimed was extinct, now showing quite a bit of activity, and the aviation and alert level raised. So we got to watch this pretty closely. You know, we can have someone with a degree come out here and say, well, this is extinct, and yeah, it's never going to happen, blah, blah, blah. We just don't know. And I try not to listen to those type of people. I'll try to look at the facts, the data, the raw data coming in, and present them out here, and the possibilities that this thing could pop, obviously, right? So we got to watch this pretty closely. If it does pop, underwater volcano like that, definitely could produce a tsunami. And in this area, I think that could be a little bit more damaging, I think, than the Tonga area when it comes to the dynamics of the openness, the plate boundary, the subduction zone. Could send out a pretty wide, strong tsunami if that thing were to blow full scale. Looking over here around the Indonesia area, south of the Philippines, some fours kicking up there, somewhat deep, 40 to 60 kilometers into the southern end of the Philippine Trench. This area very dynamic when it comes to some heavy plate movement here. Right now, though, 3 earthquakes in the 4 range. Papua New Guinea area, Solomon Islands, pretty quiet, except for down around the Fiji Islands, like I mentioned. Areas here to the west, look at this, very quiet throughout the China region and Middle East and the Mediterranean Sea area. Indian Ocean, very quiet. South and the North Atlantic Ocean, all super duper quiet for now. Puerto Rico has a little bit of activity kicking up around it. We have seen the swarm of earthquake activity here in the Haiti area die off, at least for the 4.0 earthquake activity and above. Let's go ahead and check out the EMSC model. Let me pull this up real quick here on my tabs. And we'll zoom in to the Haiti area. And we'll see what these folks are reporting for earthquake activity. Let's bounce up here just a little bit. Stand by for 1 second here, folks. These guys kind of slow. By the way, the stream came back, right? Because I brought it back earlier when I was away from the house. Again, the second day in a row, the stream has gone down when I went away from my house. As far as I know, no internet issues. Everything was streaming and green on this end. Everything looked fine until I went to my YouTube page and seen that the stream was offline. So I don't know, folks. It went down. It went down last night at like 2 a.m. and then I brought it back up, and then it went down when I left the house. Somebody's having fun, but that's okay, right? Pretty soon, you know, eventually I'll figure out what's going on with it and who is behind the activity. I think it's very fishy. Haiti area, still seeing some movement here on the 3 range. You can see the activity there. Hopefully you guys can, just west of the Puerto Rico area. A bunch of 3s kicking off still in the Haiti area. So just because the USGS is showing no activity on the 4.0 threshold does not mean that activity has completely stopped there. I think this area still needs to be on watch for larger movement. South America somewhat quiet in the 4.0 range. EMSC models still showing some activity kicking up. Let's back out here a little bit and we'll scoot down to the South America range. And there we go. Some activity right there kicking up and down the Peru-Chile Trench. And also the South America, or the Middle America Trench up here, Guatemala and Mexico area. All seeing activity in the 3 range kicking up and down the board. It's been like that for quite a few days there. South America still seeing some movement, like I mentioned here on this map, including a latest 2.9 there in the Peru-Chile Trench area. Nothing significant, but still kind of keep an eye on the South America region. It's been very quiet when it comes to sizable earthquake activity, at least within the past few weeks. West Coast movement into the states here, showing a few earthquakes within the last hour. The red circles here. Up and down the San Andreas Fault. This is the creeping section, and it's doing a whole lot of creeping over the last 24 hours. You can see some earthquake. You can see these earthquakes here popping up and down this fault system here. Major plate boundary, nothing significant, but definitely some microquakes here creeping along the San Andreas Fault. Off the coast of Southern Cal, getting a little heightened earthquake activity out here off of the coast of Long Beach, Santa Barbara area. Seeing a little bit of movement, some pretty shallow earthquake activity here in the 2 range, kicking up along these little fault systems here that sit just off the coast. San Jacinto Fault Zone, pretty quiet. No major swarming to report. No significant activity kicking up. Any place that has swarming is going to be this area north of the Ridgecrest region into pretty close to the Coso Volcanic Range. Seeing a swarm of movement here kick off over the last couple days within this area. I think it pretty much triggered last night all this earthquake activity around the Little Lake area, and some of this activity is pretty darn shallow, 1 to 2 kilometers, some a little bit more shallower. Nothing significant, no major earthquake, but it is a pretty heightened amount of earthquake activity that has been ramping up here around, no doubt, some historical, well, at least not in our time, but past historical volcanic activity in this part of Southern California. Moving up north towards obviously a super volcano, Long Valley super volcano. Some movement kicking up here. Bring the all magnitudes up outside the Long Valley caldera, which sits here within this region. Just south of Mammoth Lake, some activity kicking up. And the Nevada area, seeing some further activity northwest of Tonopah, and of course this little swarming activity, which appears to be dying down a little bit outside of Mina, Nevada, but still getting in on a little bit of activity kicking up there in the state of Nevada. Pacific Northwest, Intermountain West regions, there's activity stretching up towards Las Vegas a little bit. Wonder if this has any coincidence here with the activity occurring stretching up into Nevada. Almost looks like it, right? Of course, you got the shear fault system here. The Garlock fault kind of runs in this direction. And there are some other fault systems that run north to south, but kind of following a line of activity here, stretching up into this area of Nevada. So got to watch that pretty closely there, see if that becomes anything or not. Movement into the Pacific Northwest, right around the Mount Rainier area and St. Helens, all seeing a little bit of microquake, earthquake activity. Let's check out the tremor map here while we're on it. And wow, bada boom, bada bang. Right? It's been updated. It's almost, what do we got? Almost 7 o'clock right now. 0 epicenters of tremor once again there along the Cascadia. Entering into a pretty good space of no activity once again, folks. Keeping an eye on that pretty closely. Go ahead and back out here to the USGS once again. And the rest of the country looking pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on here. Oklahoma, New Madrid zone has a little earthquake here on the towards the northern end. Marston, Missouri, a 1.0 at 8.6 kilometers. But overall, the sleeping giant sleeps for now. What else we got to cover here? The let's see, Hawaii, right? Not a whole lot going on out there, surprisingly. We did have that earthquake off the coast of Maui yesterday or the day before, the 4-pointer. Southeast flank really is the only area seeing activity right now, and not a whole lot. Not even any earthquake activity over the last hour. A little bit of movement up here around the Mauna Loa area, just outside the caldera. Pretty shallow, 1.8. But overall, that's about it, folks. Kilauea pretty quiet in the seismic department. Yeah, kind of odd. But an area to watch. Watch this volcanic activity pretty closely here, folks. I'd hate to see that thing blow and create an underwater event. The Yellowstone activity, pretty quiet. Not a whole lot to mention here. Some microquakes Around the Maple Creek and the Madison River area, just outside the northwestern part of the Yellowstone caldera. All other areas look pretty quiet, and really no mention of no notable mention of any earthquake activity in the area today. Let's check out the space weather activity here on the sun. And the solar flare threat sits at about, looks like 50% chance of a C flare, 10% chance of an M flare from the current sunspots, which are kind of facing us right now. 2934 looks to be the most sizable threat. Some activity here along the far side of the sun, but looks like it is starting to decay. Really no major event expected from the sun at the moment. No major coronal holes either. Just a little bitty one. The 3-day geomagnetic storming forecast all sits pretty minimal, with only a 25% chance of a next or of the auroras kicking up. 40% chance here at the higher latitudes. Overall, things pretty calm here on the sun at the moment, folks. So, alrighty, I am going to jump off here and enjoy the rest of the evening here with Missy Mimis. Hope everyone else does the same and enjoys their evening. Like I say, there's a lot going on, and I think it's fair to mention and fair to say that we need to watch this earthquake swarm up here around the Davidoff Volcano. I think these folks are doing the USGS and the Alaskan Volcano Observatory area is doing the right thing by issuing that alert level and watch area for this volcano. It's it's kind of kicking up there a little bit on the swarming of earthquakes around that volcano, and we're going to watch that pretty closely. All right, folks, have a great day. Stay safe. Have a good night, and we will chat you guys a little bit later. Peace out.